Oh, that's really loud. Sorry. Yeah, just in case you weren't, and you are now. I'm Jennifer. I'm the assistant city clerk in the city clerk's office. We're going to go ahead and kick off this workshop for this redistricting. I want to thank everybody for showing up this morning on a Saturday. I know you probably had other plans, but we appreciate that y'all are here. We do have Spanish and Hmong translators that are available in case anybody needs them. So I'll go ahead and have them do that for you.
Hola, mi nombre es Rita. Si ustedes necesitan interpretación, yo voy a estar aquí en la parte de atrás del auditorio. Gracias.
Cho nên là từ xã tàu lúc trong sĩ thảm mà nó 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 chạy ô lục mong nó chỉ của tôi nhớ được nó của tôi chạy lục mong rồi này ở trong đó.
And so this is going to be a little bit more of an informal kind of a workshop that we're doing. We have Jeff Tilton here. He is our consultant for the National Demographics Corporation. I always get that wrong. It's easier in DC, but that's how I know it as. So if you guys do have any questions, he's going to give a presentation this morning. Any questions, comments that you guys may have, we have the podium up in the center, the microphone. So just make sure you're talking into the microphone because we are streaming out live on Facebook Live, and we're also recording the audio as well. So at this time, I'll let Jeff kick it off.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, like she mentioned, it is informal, excuse me, this morning, but out of respect for those who might be watching via Facebook or the streaming, while you would like to just speak from your chair, that's normally that would be fine, but we'd really want you to come up to the microphone so those who are observing via Facebook can hear, number one, your questions. The intention this morning is really informational for both parties, for you and for me. I'm really here to seek information from you, which is a big portion of the redistricting process. And so I'm going to go through some slides. What the plan was perhaps to break you into groups, but I think we can do it individually. And hopefully you'll feel courageous enough to step up and offer some insight for me to take back to the advisory commission as we go through this process. We'll then take a really small break, only for those who want to stick around and learn about the various mapping tools, or you can stay and learn about the mapping tools, and we'll try to make it as easy as possible for you, and you can get going on your Saturday after you're here to participate in this very important work. So again, welcome. I am Jeff Tilton. I work as a consultant for National Demographics Corporation. I am a retired school district administrator, and I am a Central Valley boy. So I'm not some guy from Southern California coming over here and preaching to you and all that stuff. I loved getting up this morning and smelling the onions in the air. I know what that smell is. Growing up in Manteca, we smelled bell peppers every time this time of the year, going through the Eckert cold storage. So it's good to be back in the Central Valley, and good. So again, today's agenda is to talk about the process of redistricting, the rules and goals. The rules have changed a little bit. And then we're going to talk about neighborhoods and communities of interest. And that's where I'm going to solicit input from you. There's no wrong answer, no wrong input at all in this process. Then I mentioned we'll talk about mapping tools that are afforded, and we would really encourage mapping tools that you try the mapping tools. While in DC, the firm I represent will submit likely 3 maps for this process. NDC would really like it if the map that was adopted by City Council came from somebody in the community. And so we're going to try to create that option for you. And we'll talk about next steps. Kind of difficult to see, so I'll do my best to represent this particular slide. City Council back in June made the decision to use what we call an advisory commission. It had the choice of doing this work itself as a body, or asking a commission to help process this process. There are three kinds of commissions under the law. There's what's called an independent commission, which would basically, in a nutshell, that independent commission would select the redistricting map and city council would have no say. The independent commission would not have been appointed by council at all. It's truly independent. Staff wouldn't even be working with them. They would hire probably NDC to run the meetings and all that. Truly independent, at least by design. It chose the second option, which is an advisory commission, where through an application process, individuals from throughout the county, throughout every district, was then appointed by council after going through an interview process, et cetera. There are rules to that, such as they can't be related to the council member. They could not have worked for the council member in some fashion, i.e. campaign, and they can't have worked for the city. Then there's the hybrid commission, which is kind of a combo of both. So the city chose to go with an advisory commission. And so the advisory commission had its formation meeting, I believe it was in mid to late August, where it went over and it was trained about Brown Act and the bylaws and et cetera. But right during that period, the census data were released. The federal census was released August 12th. And I know that some of you still might have a hangover from celebrating that day, for all of you that really love the census release every 10 years. But that really meant nothing for California, because California then took those data and adjusted the data based on what we call the prisoner population adjustment. So any individual who is incarcerated in California's prison system, they were reallocated, not literally, but to their previous jurisdiction. So while the census numbers came out August 12th, we had to wait for the California statewide database to go through all that data and then put all those inmates back to their previous jurisdiction where they lived before they were incarcerated. So while it may have changed some numbers in a minor fashion, and it might have changed some in a lot. I'll give you an example. In Kings County, their numbers dropped 10,000 because they have 10,000 inmates in that county. So those 10,000 inmates were reallocated to their previous jurisdiction. So some may have just been a blip in their overall data, but we had to wait for that. And that came out, depends on who you talk to. It was supposed to come out September 20th, but just after midnight on September 21st is when those data came available. So we took those data and discovered there were a lot of abnormalities in the data, and we informed the statewide database that you have a bunch of errors here, and they took our information and then re-released the data on September 27th. Why do I tell you that? Because we have deadlines to meet. And had we not had this thing called COVID, it wouldn't have been much pressure. It's not a whole lot of pressure on the city of Merced, but there's a lot of pressure on jurisdictions that have December 15th deadlines. And the deadlines are based on when the next election is for that jurisdiction. So like Merced County, its next election for the Board of Supervisors is June 15th, or excuse me, in June. So it has a December 15th deadline, 175 days before the next election. So imagine the angst that those jurisdictions are feeling. Fortunately for the city of Merced, we have until April 17th. But still, it's compressed. You feel that compression a little bit. And so we're doing our best here to try to ease that compression by having these workshops. The advisory commission has been set, they're in motion, and it had its first meeting as an advisory commission on September 15th, and its intention, those first meetings, there's three of them, but the first two are much like this. It's to inform the public of the process and to gather information on communities of interest and neighborhoods in the city of Merced. This is just another layer to that, but it's informal. It's not a place to make statements of position. That happens at the advisory commission meetings during public hearings. This is more of, where is your neighborhood? What is your community of interest? Why should it be staying together? Why should we not split that up? That type of thing. It's not about where you stand politically or all the problems in the city. That's not this venue, okay? So again, we're here to learn about the process and to go forward. I'm sorry I keep belaboring that, because what's going to happen is we're going to have another advisory commission meeting on December 1st, talk about the process. We'll solicit input on neighborhoods, communities of interest. Folks could make their statements of position then if they'd like, and that advisory commission will listen to that, just like a formalized meeting, because it is a formalized public hearing. We'll have another workshop in January. If you're so inclined to have an encore presentation, please come back in January. And this will be on a weeknight at 6 p.m. And then the final advisory commission meeting is January 22nd. It's a Saturday morning in here, January 22nd. And the outcome of that particular meeting is the advisory commission is going to select a maximum of 2 maps, okay, to take to City Council when City Council meets February 7th to look at those maps selected. And now, here's the important point. I mentioned that the independent commission, which we don't have here, the independent commission would select a map and council would have to take it, regardless. The advisory commission, council can choose to take the map or maps that have been recommended to City Council, or it could say, no, we want a different map. So that's kind of the dance that occurs with having an advisory commission. So on February 7th, after the City Council receives that map from the advisory, or maps from the advisory commission, and makes whatever direction it wants to go, then we're going to close this process out March 7th. So well before the April 17th deadline, okay? Any questions on the schedule at this point? And again, we please ask you go to the microphone up front. I'm an educator. I know about the pregnant pause. Good. I must be doing a great job explaining this. All right, so we must follow particular rules and goals we have. Number one, that are non-negotiable, is the federal laws. Our intention with the 7 districts is to attempt to have each district in equal population. The courts have allowed us to have a deviation of 10% or less, though. I was looking at the deviation of the current district makeup, and it's 8 point something. Okay, so it's under that 10% threshold. We'd love that to be closer to 0, but it's in many cases, especially for cities and counties, school districts, special districts, it's kind of difficult to do, especially when you're looking at keeping neighborhoods together and communities of interest together. We must follow the Federal Voting Rights Act. We do not want to dilute the voting strength of the protected class. We don't want to have any discriminatory practices, period. Okay. And we want no racial gerrymandering. So now we shift over to California and the new Fair Maps Act, which requires us to use particular criteria in a particular order. So we've got the federal laws already in place. Now we're looking at California. So our districts must be geographically contiguous. So picture taking a pencil and you're going to create this district, but if you pick up your pencil and draw in a different area, that's not contiguous. So it's got to be just a full square, circle, whatever shape that connect from one point to another. There's other things like rivers and things like that, but in other words, just keep your district contiguous. To the extent practical possible, we don't want to divide neighborhoods or communities of interest, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And we want to have easily identifiable boundaries, which is fairly simple in the Central Valley. I mean, you've got freeways that are usually going right through town. There's major roads, 16th Avenue, M Street, Main Street. There's roads that you identify. Here in the Central Valley, canals, railroad tracks that you can use as identifiable boundaries, or parks, or areas in town that you could, folks could easily recognize that once I cross this line, I'm in this other district, kind of thing. And we want our districts to be compact. We don't want to have fingers, or I call them tentacles, that are going from one district to another. That just begs for allegations and accusations of political gerrymandering. Okay, so we want them compact. Okay, And we know that we shall not favor or discriminate against a political party. So if we can answer everything in that column on the left and everything in the center column, then we can look at some of the other traditional principles. But our work is going to be cut out for us in looking at the federal laws and the Fair Maps Act, the middle column, criteria for cities. Any questions on this particular piece here? And please, again, go to the front. Do we take any from Facebook or? Okay. Wow, I'm rolling here. Or we're tired because it's Saturday morning. All right, so our census were finally released, and at the end of September, as I'd mentioned. And if I'm looking at the numbers, and I know it's kind of hard to see in the audience, but I'll share with you that our deviation is 27.54. Okay, so we need to get that under 10. And so essentially, in District 1, as an example, we are 698 over the ideal population of 14,447. I think you can see that on the screen, 14,447. That would be the ideal population for each district, okay? Are we having this on the website after we're done? Yeah, so this will be posted on the city's website, so if you don't need to take pictures, but you're welcome to. In District 2, as an example, we're down 664. So you can see how this pattern is going, and we need to get that deviation under 10%, okay? And then we're looking at the next, okay, if you have a question, please go to the center, please. Yeah, because we're, right now, because we're streaming. You weren't here earlier when I mentioned that. We're streaming, so folks who are watching via Facebook could see and hear and all that stuff.
Thank you. My name is Susan Welch, and I am a resident of Merced, and I'm here for the League of Women Voters. And my question is the 10% number that you said that is the limit, that it can vary, is that a legislated rule? Is that a census rule, or is it a good idea?
Yeah, a good idea. Thank you for the question. It's there's no code. It's basically precedents that the courts have determined as it relates to cities and counties and other local jurisdictions. So, but that's a great question. And if you'd like, I can email to you some language as for case law. Yeah, thanks. Or anybody else who would like that language, I'd be happy to email it to you. Just give me your card and I'd be happy to do that. Okay, so we're looking at citizen voting age population, and this is the part where we're looking at and making sure we're not diluting the voting strength of the protected class. So if you look at the current breakdown in the citizen voting age population for the current districts, there is just one district, District 2, that has a majority Hispanic citizen voting age population. And citizen voting age population, it doesn't necessarily mean they're registered voters. It means they're eligible to vote. Whether they're eligible or they are registered, it's just the total population the percentage population of that particular class, okay? So here we have, based on this number, but you can't really use this number because we're 27.54 deviation. We've got to fix that. But just looking at this number, and I really don't like to talk about it because I don't want to give you false impressions, but there are two districts that are majority-minority, number 1 and number 2, and then District 3 is at 50%. So it tells us we might have some work to do here as it relates to our last districting. So any questions on this particular demographics sheet? Our ideal piece is 14,447.
Hi, good morning. Sabrina Bong, Merced City District. I want to know what identifies a protective class.
Great, thank you. It's historically those that have been denied access to the voting process, and it goes all the way back. It's one of the most important civil rights legislation that the federal government had passed back in, I think it was 64. So thank you for the question. So a big part of today is to gather information from you as what is your neighborhood? And what are some of the defining areas, physical features that describe the neighborhoods in the city of Merced? And generally, we always say in the absence of any public testimony, we can use planning records, et cetera. But I'm confident we're going to get some public testimony this morning, right? Okay, calm down. All right. In addition, we're looking at communities of interest. And people say, what are communities of interest? Well, they're basically geographic areas that have shared social and economic interests. And what the example I like to use, or maybe planned neighborhoods, or homeowners associations, or apartment complexes, or things like that, where the area of the city have shared social or economic interest and could be or are impacted by city policies. But we know that they may not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. Okay? So now it's your turn. If you have something that you can feed and help inform our work and inform the work of the advisory commission, we'd love to hear what is a particular neighborhood in the city of Merced and perhaps communities of interest, either or both. So I'm going to sit and I'm going to write down whatever is shared, but please, again, use the podium. Is it called a podium or a lectern? I can't remember. Okay, we'll go with podium today. Okay, so I'm going to step away and thank you for your participation. Okay, seeing no one stepped up? No, come on. I'm going to step away. So.
Thank you very much. While I'm president of League of Women Voters, the communities I'm about to list do not come from them, but simply from having lived in Merced for the last 30 years straight, and then graduated from high school and community college here, which means I'm practically considered an old timer, but not quite yet, because there's some families who've lived in the city a long time. Is there any chance you could put up a map of the city? Probably not. Okay. Well, there are a couple of communities that I would like to draw to your attention right away. One is the Ragsdale community. The Ragsdale community begins at G Street. It's bounded on the north by Bear Creek, and depending on, and it's generally bounded on the south by the railroad tracks, and there's an area called New Ragsdale that runs through the avenues, and that's to Glen Avenue. That is generally considered a community, but there are also people across 26th, 27th, across Bear Creek that also see themselves as part of that community. But certainly Ragsdale, which is G to Bear Creek to Santa Fe to Glen, sees themselves as a community. There's another community that is, thank you, there's another community that is at the end of, south of Bear Creek and at the end of Bear Creek that have some very old family residences and some old families that still live there, from Bear Creek down to the 20s, maybe even 18th Street, that run from R Street, which is a major artery, clear over to, I want to say like Highway 59, though it's not really. Some of those streets don't touch Highway 59. Another community is the community that surrounds Tenaya. Tenaya is in the south part of Merced. There is a strong community that borders north, a whole circle around Tenaya. There is a newer community, well, newer to me because, I'm old, but there's a newer community that is down south of Childs. There was new housing built there in the last 15 years, and those people have formed a fairly strong community that's south of Childs and east of Parsons. And there's actually a couple of neighborhood associations. There is that I'm sure you will hear from if you have not, the Downtown Neighborhood Association, which runs the length of Main 18th and 19th and does conclude some both businesses as well as homeowners. There is the Golden Valley Neighborhood Association, which is the community that is directly south of Golden Valley High School. And right off the top, those are the communities that I know. Oh, there are two others that I would like to mention. One is the College Streets. The College Streets are across the street from Merced College, and they're called the College Streets because they have names like Tulane, Berkeley. They are named for colleges. That is an old established neighborhood, as are the communities that are to the north of Yosemite Parkway. We call them the bird streets because really they're named after birds, Sprague, teal, cardinal, those streets that are north of Yosemite. Those homes are a little older, 20 years or so, and that community has also formed a very tight community. It's sort of an isolated pocket, and it runs from Cruikshank Middle School over to not over to Starbucks, the street that's there, over to Paulson. And so those are the ones that I would like to draw to your attention that I know of, that I have worked in and with. There are several others, including some in South Merced that surround churches that I'm not so familiar with. I just know they exist. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Diana Odom Gunn, and I'm president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. First, I want to clarify that we represent the residents of downtown, not the businesses. The businesses are represented by the Main Street Association. We represent the voters, and the voters are part of a singular, contiguous neighborhood that currently extends and covers both District 3 and 4. The Downtown Neighborhood Association would like to have those neighborhoods together because we have older homes, we have crumbling infrastructure, we have similar interests, and we have one united organization representing all of those older downtown neighborhoods. Currently, the boundary for the downtown neighborhoods falls at the railroad tracks. And we believe that is a false and inappropriate line because it divides those older neighborhoods into separate districts and weakens our power to influence city choices to the benefit of the older homeowners. We would like to push that line from the railroad tracks, the BNSF, up to Bear Creek. Most of the downtown neighborhoods, in fact, all of the downtown neighborhoods are south of Bear Creek. And we feel that following Bear Creek as the natural north boundary of District 3 would be wiser. It would preserve the integrity of downtown neighborhoods. For the south boundary, we would prefer we use the highway because it is seen by the general public as the boundary for downtown area. So, two major changes.
May I ask for clarification? Excuse me for interrupting. Which highway?
Oh, 99.
Okay, thanks.
I forgot we had more than one. So Highway 99, sir. Sorry. Physical features. Highway 99 and Bear Creek, we would like to use as boundaries. A number of members of the Downtown Neighborhood Association are enthusiastic about making this change. It coincides with the boundaries of our organization, which have been successful at uniting homeowners in that area. Thank you.
for those who aren't on your streaming. So, my name is Nicola Adams. I am a third generation of Merced. My family's lived here for 5 generations now. We've seen a lot of changes. One of the organizations that weren't mentioned was the South Merced Coalition. And so, growing up here in South Merced, we grew up where the boundary was 16th Street, to where we could not live past that. And so there's a lot of neighborhoods that are kept together that was united during that time. And all of your African American churches are in that area. You've got Mount Pisgah, which is on across from Tenaya on 8th and N Street. You've got St. Matthew's Baptist Church, which is on the corner of 11th and N Street. You have Second Baptist Church, which is on Q Street. You have Friendship Baptist Church, which is off S and 9th Street. You have New Faith, which is off D Street, right behind the Fairgrounds Flea Market. There is Holy Ground. There's so many churches that are in that community that help form that community, that people are still united by those churches. And so to break that community up would do a big disservice to the African American community that attends those churches, and most live in that area. And so growing up in that area, I know from Martin Luther King Boulevard, actually G Street, all the way over to S Street and back Park Avenue, Parkway. All of that was our communities over there. And so that community is still there. Families have lived in some of those homes for 4 generations. If you go on West 5th Street, you will find homes that people are still living in that their great grandparents lived in. And so Mr. Selma is 92 years old, that used to own one of the first African-American bakeries here in Merced, still lives in that area. So a lot of people know that this is the place that we go for our elders, for advice, for community. So that is one area that really needs to stay together.
Hello, I'm Sandra Hay. I'm not really with the group, but I live in District 4, which has got to be the weirdest looking district on this map. And I have the same concern like Diane had, because I live in the purple area between 5 and 3. And 4, we don't have a lot in common with that area of 4 that's way up in the north side. I prefer that we move that boundary to Bear Creek too, so we can be more with District 3, because I mean, I walk my dog around all the time and we have a lot more in common with District 3 than we do with the northern part of 4. So I would like to see that area put more together also. Thank you.
Is this like a city council meeting where you only get to speak once? Okay. So my name is Susan Welch, and the other thing that I would like to draw to your attention are the city schools that are in the central and southern part of Merced. The city school district has a financial challenge in building schools north of Olive, and actually in Yosemite and north, a financial challenge. But many of the schools that are south of Olive, in the south part of the city, are considered walking schools. And neighborhoods have formed around schools based on the activities of their children and the use of their schools as civic centers. The neighborhood around Rivera, John Muir, Leontyne Gracie, as you look at, to the degree possible, if you could not shave boundaries really closely around individual schools, if you could recognize that there is a walking neighborhood around most city schools, that would benefit the families and the children in the schools, because they really do form communities around schools where their children go.
Are they, okay, thank you, sir.
My name is Wayne Eisenhart. I am resident of District 3. I'm with the Downtown Neighborhood Association also. I even have a T-shirt that's several years old, providing evidence of our commitment to each other. I'm not here to pile on. I just wanted to ask a question. And you started talking about District 1 and 2 and the population differential, and I would like to know the differentials for the other districts, particularly District 3, but also I just agree with everything anybody said here already. So that's all.
Well, thank you, everyone, for that great, valuable feedback and information. I'm going to show, if you don't stick around, I'll tell you how to do it, but if you do stick around for the mapping tools piece, there is an email address on the city's website, the redistricting portion. And while I can write as quickly as I can, I want to make sure that I don't misrepresent your thoughts. And so if you would mind emailing your thoughts as well, and along with not being able to keep up with your valuable input, my penmanship is just terrible. So I'm used to texting with two thumbs. So was there a deadline for the comments was the question. Let me go back here. The deadline for everything for the commission's January 22nd meeting is January 7th. So anything that we can get before January 7th would be great. And that includes draft maps, et cetera. So I'm going to get back to, again, so thank you, everyone. And what happens with this information, and that's why I'm asking if you could also email it so I can coordinate your thoughts as well, is I include your thoughts on my presentations to the Advisory Commission. So that's the information that will help inform them when they are looking at maps to recommend to the City Council. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. So getting back to the question with respect to the other districts. So I'll just go through every one of them. District 1 is based on the 2020 census, California adjusted. District 1 is in excess of 698, in excess of meeting that ideal population of 14,447. District 2 is less 664. District 3 is less 1,685. District 4 is less 408. District 5 is less 236. And there's been, I guess, growth in District 6 with 2,294 in excess. So that's where we need to play around a little bit. So with your information, will help inform those who want to draft maps, along with NDC as well. So are there any questions as it relates to this particular table? And we have, looks like a question.
Where did the ideal population per district number come from? Was it an average? I just want to know where that 1,400 came from.
Great question. So if you take the total population of 86,681 divided by 6, you'll get the ideal population of 14,447. Okay?
Is there anything that says we have to stay with 6 districts?
So typically I would defer to legal on that. And so my response has that caveat, but it's my understanding it would require a referendum or a vote to make a change in the city council makeup. City manager, am I correct on that?
It would go to the people for a ballot. It would for.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry, on a ballot. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, on the ballot, not the city council.
I wanted to help answer that question as both the chair of the Redistricting Commission, but also as a former member of the Charter Review Committee. The number of city council members is set at 6 by charter, regardless of the presence or absence of districts.
And just to clarify, the goal in establishing the division of the total population by 6 is to create an equitable number of voters in each district.
So this is where we would take our break and we transition into mapping tools. So if you would like to depart, I know we've only been at this for 40 minutes, so I'm not, oh, excuse me.
So I would just ask the tool and then let people, because there's so many.
Right. Right. Okay, so let's go through the tools. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the slides, and then I'll go back and demonstrate a couple of them. And then if you have individual questions, we can address those questions as well. So we have a variety of tools. We have tools that are, you can write on a napkin and draw out the city districts on a napkin. We'll take it. So it doesn't matter how highly skilled one might be with respect to drafting maps. Seriously, if there's something in your thoughts, whether it's a community of interest or something, we'll take that information and do our best job to represent your thoughts. Additionally, we would like to have your name and contact information because we want to make sure that we are best representing your thoughts and getting feedback from you as we look at your draft, if we need to. With that, you might have a name on your map, but your map won't be called after you. It won't be named after you. Okay, I'm sorry. It'll usually be like a map 101, map 102. So sorry if it's you thought your name would be on the map. It would be public record too, though. I'll have to tell you, it'll be public record, but it not necessarily be broadcast over, the world and stuff like that. Obviously, someone can look at to see who submitted, etc. But I'm going to show you how you can do it anonymously. Okay. So we have a variety of options, from basically writing on a napkin to, if you're into map software and GIS and all that stuff, you can do it that way too. Once maps are drafted, they'll go on this thing that we call interactive review tool. It's not a tool to draw maps. It's more of an internet-based web page where you can look at all the different maps that have been submitted and you can compare them. You can look at layers on those maps. You can layer the maps on top of each other and look at the differences, especially as it relates to the current district's makeup. And that will be active. Oh, it should be active now, but it should only have like the current district and then the 2020 census data. So you can actually go on there and look at it now. If it's not, we'll make sure it gets up. We call this a simple map drawing tool, and that's not to insult anyone because it is rather easy. The city is broken up into what we call population units, and inside those units are population figures. And the task here is to essentially color in your districts and then add up those numbers. You probably need more than your fingers. Use a calculator, and that will let you know if you're getting close to that ideal population, okay? I believe there are copies of this out on the lobby, yeah, for your use, and I know you can download them through the Redistricting website in both English and Spanish. Are the Spanish ones downstairs too? Yeah, so they're downstairs. So that's the one you can just use to count up. Next one, very similar. But instead of population figures inside those population unit areas, there's a single identifiable number that's not repeated. And you essentially take that number and apply it to an Excel spreadsheet. And you tell the Excel spreadsheet, what district do you want that population unit to be in? And it calculates all the data for you. It's population, citizen voting age population, income, education, all the robust information that you would see when the draft maps are presented to the commission and then the council. Now, you're not going to find this downstairs because you need an Excel file to be able to use this. So this would be more web-based, and then you can download it, download the Excel file because it is Merced specific. And then we have a really cool tool from, I'm sorry, but that's the name of it, Dave's Redistricting. We started using a program called District R, and which is a great tool. It was created by students and staff from Tufts University, but they became victims of their own success. And they essentially cannibalized themselves in essence. They got too busy, too popular, too quickly. And they basically, all those December 15th deadline folks I was telling you about earlier, they're struggling just to keep up with those individuals or those jurisdictions. So they've essentially stopped adding on new clients. And so we found an alternative, which was equally, and we think it's actually easier for the user, in Dave's Redistricting. We'll try to make it sound a little more formalized, as in DRA 2020. So it's actually a really cool tool. On the website, you'll have the link to go to this particular tool, but you should highly advisable that you look at the how-to tutorial, because there are steps that you need to take to make sure that your draft map is going to be considered for the advisory commission. There are steps like save your map and email it to the redistricting email address, etc. Because you don't do that, it's out there in the internet world, and your great work may never be picked up by the commission or the city council for consideration. So please follow the instructions on Dave's Redistricting. And then I mentioned you can use your own mapping software if you have that. There's probably a great small percentage of folks that have that, but we create that option for individuals who might want to submit. We're finding more and more that there are, namely coalitions are starting to submit draft maps via their software, which is great. It's great. I talked about the redistricting website. There is the URL, the website address. And if you have any questions, or as I'd mentioned earlier, if you would be so kind to type out your communities of interest, neighborhoods, thoughts, and submit them to city clerk at cityofmerced.org, and they will get to me. It's really important work. So that concludes the presentation. I was going to go over really Dave's Redistricting. There's the paper maps are self-explanatory, but if you do have questions on that, I'd entertain questions. But that essentially concludes this portion. If you do have questions, we'll go to the mic, but I'm going to transition now into Dave's Redistricting. Okay, so please give me a couple minutes. Can we get to the web?
Yeah. So just to kind of go over our website. So if you go to cityofmerced.org, this is the home page here. So the redistricting page is right at the beginning on the banner. So all you have to do is just click from here and it'll take you directly onto that web page. So anything that's redistricting related, whether it's the Redistricting Advisory Committee, this particular workshop, all the material from today, past meetings, any future meetings that we'll have will be onto this page. There's different tabs, as you can see here, over there. So these tabs This kind of gives you an explanation of what the redistricting process is. This is a schedule of all of our scheduled dates of meetings, public hearings, our other workshop, our public hearing for our redistricting advisory committee, and also the 2 public hearings that we're going to have for city council. And then this is where you can find the paper maps. We also, I don't know if you guys, when you first walked in, there's a table out in the lobby that has the map, a little bit of frequently asked questions on redistricting. We also have the paper maps there as well. You are more than welcome to bring those into the city clerk's office, which is the doors next to the elevators on the first floor. You can turn them in that way. We get them to NDC, and then they put everything together for that. So that from here is where you can get all the drawing maps. This is where the draft maps will come. Any resources. So this is where all the materials are. Any PowerPoints will be on this page as well. The videos of all the meetings, like today's meeting, will be posted on Monday on this website. And anything that we've done redistricting wise, whether it's material, videos, or anything, will be onto this page as well. And then just frequently asked questions. And if you want to get notified on anything, any updates on redistricting, you can sign up on this page here. We'll go back to map. And there you go. Dave's. How it's working. Sure.
All right, so I want to make sure I walk the walk, talk the talk thing. So at the bottom here, you could see the how-to guide. And I want to open it up because I want to show you. And I cheat. I can't do the website thing. I have to print this out for me to follow it. That's what I highly advise you to do this. So I think it's like 9 pages, and it's it populates. But you could once you do it one time, I trust you'll be able to do it multiple times. Now, get out of this. Oh, thanks. I'm going to warn you on this. Don't call AT&T, Comcast, Charter, whoever your internet provider is. It's not their fault. Dave's loads slowly. Okay? So it's nothing wrong with your machine, or maybe you're going back to look at your work. I mean, ridiculously slow. It's almost like you had that dial-up modem. Remember, some of you don't even remember that, but there was a time when you heard the whistles and So I have to log in. So don't pay attention to how I log on. This is not how you do it. You follow the instructions, please. Yeah. Oops. See, I've even logged in on the wrong information. One of the beauties about some of the websites is that once you do your username login, it remembers it. So when you go into a strange computer, it's like, all right. So now I'm going to see it's moving things around here. You're not going to do this. Don't do what I'm doing, please. All right. So it'll show you on your instructions to type in Merced at this top line right here, and it's going to say make sure you make a copy of. We call it duplicate. It's on the instructions, but this is me because I built this. So. All right, we can probably take a coffee break while it loads. Wow, that was fast. Okay, so it's broken up right now into precincts. If you wanted to do a quick paint job, you can just use the precincts. And sorry, I have to bend down here a little bit. So right now it's highlighted at what you want to call District 1. It's not going to go into the current district numbers. It's what you're going to call District 1. So if I was to paint a particular area that I think should be District 1, I'd be on that color. The color is purple. And here's the tools, and you want to use the paintbrush. And all you do is just, oh yeah, look at my District 1. And it's showing you, so far in my District 1, I have 8,652. And you know your target's 14,500. Let's just use that as an easy number. And you keep going through. And remember the rules. They've got to be contiguous, trying to remember what the communities of interest are, those neighborhoods we talked about, easily identifiable boundaries, and compact. What won't work is something like this. You know, I mean, that's not really compact. Oh, so I made a mistake. I'm going to do this thing right here called eraser. I just come back and I get rid of that. Now I'm going to go back to my paintbrush because I have 11,247, 13,025, okay? Now I could very easily click on this precinct and just to fill in, now I'm at 15,588. It's too high. I'm not comfortable with that. I mean, I can underpopulate another district to get close to that 10%, but me, I wouldn't do that. So one of the things you can do is use the eraser. I mean, I want to show you something that this is what happens when you use precincts. I'm going to click right here and watch this. You see that right there? Now we're not contiguous because that precinct goes down in that particular area. So we would look at and they'd say, that map doesn't qualify because it's not contiguous. So that's why I want to show you this part. I want to erase that because I don't want that to be there. You go into blocks, census blocks. We get the paintbrush. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see better. Zoom in more. Can you start seeing those census blocks at all? Okay, as soon as I click on it, come on. You can see the streets. Okay, now I'm going to click on the paintbrush and it's going to, now you're going to see the census blocks show up. You see all these blocks, census lines here? So now I'm going to use the brush and start filling in the census blocks. You can't split a census block. You have to make sure. Now we're at 11,784. And I know I have to get this area to remain contiguous, this particular area here. 12,213. You see how that census block is weird? See how that, you've got to hit it though. You can't split it. That's a census block. And now we're at 12,600. You got to fill all these in. Come on. Why did I get the hand? Fill them in. And I'm at 13,025. About 1,500 shy, okay? So now I'm going to go down, and based on, you know, the interaction that we had earlier, and you might know community of interest extends out in this particular area. Remember, these are only the things that are highlighted right here in this area. That's a voting precinct. That's all it is, okay? Dave's just makes it easier for you to fill in a bunch of area with the voter precinct. But we're using blocks right now. Watch when I click on this. See the census blocks show up? And now we need to fill in so we can get close to that 14,475, whatever it was. And you get, see, here's a weird census block. So, you know, you got to really be careful when you're, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to show you another weird one. You see that right there, that sliver? I don't know if you could see that. See the white above the gray right there? I don't know if you can tell. I'm going to zoom in some more. It's this right here. It's just a little sliver right there. So you got to watch out for those when you're doing this. It's based on the number of individuals in that area, but sometimes there might not be any individuals. It's kind of a dead area. You'll see that along like freeway frontage, railroads, but it's got to be, they've got to create a block for it. Yeah. You see, there's a real issue in the city of Vallejo where there's a couple of freeways that intersect, and like one side of it is like this, I don't know, City of Martinez or something, but it's like a weird area. And if you look at their current map, it's not contiguous. They've got to fill in that hole. So let's see if anybody lives there. So right now I'm at 13,138. Well, let's paint it. No one lives there. So, I mean, that's kind of the nuances with this census block thing. So going back, I need to fill this in. On this one over here? This one? Well, let's find out. Anybody want to take a guess? This? Well, 59? Okay. That intersects with Santa Fe down below. All right, getting back to our painting. All right, we're going to have to click on this one. Fill in these census blocks. And we don't want to have any red flags show up. We better click here because someone's going to say, well, why do you have that little finger? So let's click right here on this particular finger. We're at 14,890. We can make choices of what we want to do to try to population balance. I would fiddle around a little bit more, say, let's erase that. And now we're at 14,273. I'm comfortable with that. That's all I could do. My rationale for having that little spot down there is to try to make it population balanced. Okay, hopefully I'm not splitting up a community. Hopefully I'm not splitting up a neighborhood. Does that make sense to you? You go through your process, make sure you read the instructions, save it, and then email it to the redistricting email address. Love to see a number of maps coming from the community and that the commission would consider. So any questions on Dave's? DRA 2020. Any questions on anything? Just make sure we go up to the mic, please.
So I'm a little bit of a strategist. What's to keep me from submitting my map and then submitting it again 100 times anonymously?
Well, that anonymous person would probably tick off the commission and NDC because NDC has to process it. Actually, what NDC would do is it would recognize that these are essentially repeats and say map 107 was submitted 98 times as the same map. Okay, and while we don't know the intention of the author of that map, but now we do, we would share that with the commission. So, but to your point, you might send multiple maps with small nuances. That's completely fine. It's completely fine. We have a jurisdiction to the south of us here in the Central Valley where the governing body took one map that was recommended from the commission, and it wants 8 variations of that map. Okay, that's what we do. Okay, but at least they're taking the commission's map. They're still honoring the commission's recommendation. They're looking at it and they want 8 variations. They want to make sure they make the right decision. I believe. I have to believe that. Any other questions before we close? Come to the microphone, please, sir.
Why do you accept anonymous maps? If somebody wants to put their information out there, shouldn't they put their name with their work? Thank you.
You're very welcome. The anonymity will come from Dave's redistricting. We have no clue who submits it unless we really do some internet sleuthing and try to figure out their email address, which I'm pretty good at doing. But that's really it. The other thing with the public map submission, somebody could submit a map without putting their name and contact information on it when they submit it. Same would apply if they emailed it, because they can drop off their draft map to the city clerk, Jennifer, and they don't have to have their name on it to be considered.
I have a quick question on the process. So I see that on January 22nd, narrowing draft map submissions. So what does that process look like? Does it mean like any map that has been submitted to the city clerk or on Dave's, like there will be time to review that in person with the public, or how does that work?
Yeah, as I'd mentioned earlier, there is a deadline, January 7th, even though the meeting is January 22nd. Yeah. We have a deadline of January 7th. That gives NDC a few days to process all the maps that have been submitted. And being married to a retired city clerk, I'm really sensitive to making sure that the governing body has time to study everything that's been submitted. So I like to get all this information back to, in this case, the commission at a minimum 7 days before. Every map that's submitted will be on the redistricting website 7 days before that January 22nd hearing, if not sooner. So both the commission and the public will have access to those, and they can study them and all that stuff. And then if they have questions or they want to make comments or come to the public hearing for the commission meeting or the city council, they will have that information well beforehand. Did that answer your question? Okay, good. Any other questions?
Just to jump in on that, I'm sorry. Because it is a redistricting committee meeting, we have to agendize it as well. So we're required by law to have that publicly available 72 hours prior to the meeting. So if we can have this material that we can add into that agenda ahead of time, it helps with that process. And then when you come to the meeting, you'll be able to voice your public comments at that point as well.
Thanks. Thanks for taking.
When we get home, we start playing with this, and we have come up with problems or questions. How do we get those answered?
So if you'll email the city clerk on that, city clerk at City of Merced.
Yeah, city clerk at cityofmerced.org.
Through the redistricting website, she'll make sure it gets to me. I try to take weekends off, but it's not a reality. Anything else before we close? Please enjoy this great fall day here and enjoy the smell of the onions as you walk out. So, all right, thank you.